Why do you think that for a lot of women that being out there very promiscuous and stuff like that, why do you think that actually hurts their chances of getting a relationship as opposed to helping it?
People do dismiss porn as, oh, it's not so bad, like it's fine, everyone watches it, but it literally changes your brain chemistry.
So what did your kind of party promiscuous phase, what did that teach you about men? Yo guys, welcome back to another episode on my channel. I'm sitting in this spot, which means I've got another great conversation lined up for you today. On this channel, we talk about all things dating and, try and see what we can do to attract the kind of person and relationship that we want for ourselves. So without further ado, please welcome Hayley to the show. Hayley, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. How are you doing today?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, you came all the way from Hertfordshire. We appreciate. Yeah. We appreciate from Green, Hertfordshire. Look, I want us to just jump in. Okay. So to start off, tell us your age or your age range, if you don't want to share your actual age. And then one thing a guy should know about you if he wanted to take you on a date.
Okay, so I'm 30. I'm happy to share that.
Cool.
One thing he needs to know, probably that I'm quite a deep, opinionated person. So
okay,
yeah.
About anything like any particular topics or just in general?
Just in general, like anything I'm passionate about. I'm definitely not like a shy wallflower. You see me, you hear me. Like I'm very much. I take up a lot of space. So
yeah, 100%. What's because you make your own content as well.
Yeah.
What would you say is something that you say that people push back on the most?
I think people can be really offended by truth. So if I share anything with good intentions, anything open and honest, some people can react quite badly to that, which I understand because it might be shining a light on something that, causes them pain or has made them sort of doubt themselves in the past. So yeah, I do get a lot of feedback from people saying, oh, that was really hurtful to read, or there should have been a trigger warning on that. Yeah.
Trigger warnings. I just feel like if you're going to be out in the world, that's your trigger warning. Like there's just some things in the world that, you're going to hear that you may not initially agree with. That's just part of life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So speaking of truth, obviously you and I kind of discussed off camera before about your experience in dating and your journey. What's the truth about men that you think is difficult for a lot of women to swallow?
That they're not as complicated as we think. I think women have kind of generated this like philosophy that men are like super complicated and, they behave one way, but they want a certain thing. And I don't think it's that complex. I think when we strip it all back, just having open communication will help you kind of decipher what a man's intent is and what he wants, like within a relationship. Yeah.
That seems to be the biggest confusion, that women are like, I don't know what his intentions are and I don't know what he sees from me or sees for us.
Okay.
What would you say in your experience has helped you kind of deduce that?
I think from a woman's perspective as well, having clear intent herself, like knowing what does she want from a relationship, what does she want from dating or from a guy.
Yeah.
If you go into it with kind of no expectations, no boundaries, it can get messy because no one's clear on what direction either of you are going on, for example.
Yeah, 100%. So speaking of like expectations and boundaries, you operate very differently now to how you were before.
Very differently, for sure, yeah.
Tell us how you were moving in the space before.
So kind of rewind back to my 20s.
Yeah. Also, I can't believe you're 30, by the way. I thought you were like 22.
Oh,
she looks so young.
That's
no, honestly,
lovely.
she looks
That's
so
lovely
young.
to hear. Do you know, people still ID me for lottery tickets and things like that. And I'm like, I'm 30. I don't carry
surprised.
ID. And they're like, oh, I thought you were younger. I'm like, no, I'm not a chancer.
You do look younger. But yeah, go on.
But yeah, sorry, going back to your question. So in my 20s, I was like a serial dater, a serial shagger, if you like.
Yeah.
So I couldn't kind of be 2 minutes without having a man in my life, whether it was, dating, serious, a boyfriend, whatever. And to be honest, there was no strategy, like no strategy there at all. It was just, okay, he's attractive or he's nearby. Let's just delve in and see where it goes.
Way.
Yeah.
And was it like, did you have like one or two guys that you just kept coming back to? Were you always meeting new people, meeting new guys all the time?
Yeah, there was like one or two, you know, old flames that if you were to break up with someone, you might kind of return to them because they were like familiar.
Yes.
It's going to sound super bad, but
No,
I used to also think about body count. So I used to think, oh, well, you know, if I go back to an ex, then I don't need to worry about that.
You can get your needs met and you're not adding another to your notch.
So it was very kind of course, your 20s are like your learning years, aren't they? So, I would just kind of jump from various guy to various guy, wasn't focusing on qualities, value, anything like that, really.
Right.
It was just appearance and location.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. And what do you think you were prioritizing then compared to what you prioritize now? In regards to the kind of guys that you choose?
So then it would have just been, like convenience, based on physical attraction as opposed to, well, you know, is this person loyal? Is this person headstrong? Are they going to meet my needs, etc.? It was just more about, the initial attraction, sex, convenience, location.
Yeah.
Whereas now, having done like some of my own healing and obviously just growing as you get older, you get wiser, don't you, and figure things out. I realize now all about masculine, feminine energies, like first impressions, like your gut instinct, because there were so many times in the past where I would go on a date or I'd meet a guy and think, well, no, like I'm not feeling this, or this doesn't seem right. Oh, well, just go with it and like see how it goes, rather than thinking, there you are, like that's a warning sign to not like progress.
Yeah, I hear that. And what do you think you were like? Were you looking for anything by, you know, kind of having this kind of crazy party, kind of promiscuous lifestyle? Was there something you're looking for, or were you just literally just going moment by moment?
Do you know what? Like at the time, it was moment by moment. It was kind of like chasing a thrill, and I suppose like occupying my time, enjoying like the attention and everything that came with it. But upon reflection, now I'm older, I think back to, you know, what was I doing? Like what headspace was I in?
Yeah.
And it was all about validation. Like I just so wanted to be like, pick me. I just so wanted someone to like me or to give me that like love and respect that I perhaps was lacking.
Yes.
So it's deeper than, you can imagine.
Yeah, of course. And how did you want a relationship at any point during that time?
Yeah, I did. Like, I remember saying to myself, I just want to meet a nice guy. Like, I just want to settle down.
Yeah. How old were you when you were like, I just want to meet a nice guy, just to have one person?
I think I was probably like 23, 24.
Okay, so still early 20s still.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I remember I had like my first long-term relationship. I was probably 19, 20, kind of 21, so still very young.
Yeah.
And when that broke down unexpectedly,
that went on a mad one.
Yeah, that kind of fueled this, oh fuck it, like let's just go out and have fun, let my hair down, like, you know, I'm only gonna get hurt if I try and, you know, commit to something serious again.
Yeah.
So that was like the kind of catalyst for like, madness and party and whatever.
Yeah.
And then I thought, no, actually, I do want a secure relationship. I missed things like, you know, companionship and like planning your diary with events and stuff like that together.
Yeah.
But in my head, I had this, I guess it's societal pressure of like, I need to be married by 25. I need to be settled. I need, you know, which is just crazy. But at the time, I would have that in the back of my mind as well. Right. Which I think was adding to this, I've got to meet someone, I've got to be out there, I've got to be dating.
Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, if you're going to be married by 25, like realistically, because you'd be in a relationship for at least a few years before you even get engaged, let alone then get married. So realistically, if you're going to be married by 25, you'd have to choose someone by 21. You wouldn't be jumping about. Do you know what I mean?
No pressure, like,
Yeah, interesting. What do you... I know you're saying it was based on physical attraction, and then you started prioritizing guys who actually, you know, want a relationship, want that love, respect and stuff like that. A lot of women feel, especially when they've dated a different kind of guys, they find that the average guy, they find it hard to be attracted to him. Yes. Even though he is the man who's probably most likely to give her the love, security that she's looking for. So what would you say, or how do you think a lot of women can overcome that? Okay, he's willing to give what it is that I'm looking for, and we're on the same page. But I'm just not as attracted to this guy that I was to this football player who messed me around for a bit, but we had a really great fun for the couple of months that I was there. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I can totally relate to that. When you were saying it, I was like, oh yes, this resonates.
Yes.
It's so hard because you're having to basically rewire your brain and like your whole chemistry, because there's just something, I mean, I don't want to speak for all women because it's not necessarily, but a majority, we are just attracted to that, like the darkness, the drama, like the thrill. Like I always associated good sex with bad men. So
yeah,
so
you probably wouldn't be the first.
Yeah.
Probably
so like,
be the first one.
When I started to kind of evaluate things, and friends would say, oh, that you want a guy like this, and they describe him to me. I'd be like, oh, he sounds amazing, but there won't be that spark, there won't be that chemistry.
That spark.
Yeah. So going back to your question, what can people do? It's really hard, and it's something that I've battled with personally. I've taken it to therapy. I've spoken to my therapist about it. I think recognizing that the whole, the sex, the lust, the spark, if you like, that isn't deep. It's surface level stuff.
Yes.
Whereas to have sex that is more about intimacy, connection, it's more sensual, getting to know each other, that will occur with a man who genuinely loves and cares for you. You're not going to get that with someone who just wants a quick fuck on the weekend.
Yeah, 100%. And it's almost like, it's really interesting what you said about rewiring, because it's kind of, you have to change your diet.
Yes.
Or I hate saying diet, because diets is a temporary change. Like you have to change your eating habits. And it's like, at first, maybe you're not going to enjoy the broccoli stems. Do you know what I mean? That is probably really good for you. But you do that over a certain period of time, you get used to it. And then when you feel hungry, you're like, oh, actually, I'm actually looking forward to having that.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. I guess it goes back to like quality, doesn't it? So in our heads, we can reflect on past like rendezvous and experiences of, oh my God, that was so fun. That was a thrill,
Yeah.
But when you get into a serious relationship, or, that there's a shift where you can genuinely tell, okay, this person is into me, not into what I bring to the bedroom, not into like my lingerie, he's into me.
Yeah.
And that in itself can be super liberating and can make you feel so sexy and empowered.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's just, kind of confirming that you're worth it, you're worthy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Do you think there's a level of, in the rewiring, right? Because there was a point where you were just choosing the hot guys that you'd have so much fun with.
Some of them weren't even hot, to be honest.
Come on, Hayley. At least make them attractive regardless.
Low standards, low boundaries.
Oh, gosh. But yeah, like you were just choosing purely based on convenience, but made like their physical attractiveness, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm guessing, you go on dates, and especially if a guy's a bit of a player, and if he's super attractive, a lot of girls would like him and he's confident. You're like, oh, I'm going to feel that spark and stuff.
Yeah.
But then with the guy who's probably going to give you what you want, may seem less appealing at first, but that spark, did you feel that spark wasn't there and you had to be patient and it had to come with time?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people go, I just didn't feel that spark straight away, so it's a no.
Sure,
Do you know what I mean?
I understand that. With any relationship, it takes time, doesn't it, to develop? And if it happens organically and it's not forced. So, for example, if you're going to leap straight into bed with someone, you've kind of skipped 5 steps ahead. Whereas if you take the time to actually date, to have deep, heavy conversations, what do you think about this? Like, where do you see this going in the future? Blah, blah, blah. You will build more of a connection. But where we're in such a rush kind of mindset, or let's just get our desires met, and then, oh, actually, no, they're not that good. Good things take time, right? Rome wasn't built in a day. It's so true.
Very true. What's something you'd like to talk about today?
I think something that actually has been on my mind recently is lots of men and women, you know, who have maybe had a colourful promiscuous past when they're young, in their 20s, it's very common.
Yes.
They can kind of get written off in the dating world.
Probably more women experience that than men.
Yes. And there's a real stigma around, you know, or don't touch them with a barge pole. Like, you know, they've had a shady past, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So I think it's important to realize that people can change and people can, you know, like redeem themselves and do like switch 180 as I have done.
Sure.
So like people who knew me back then, they don't know me now. Like I'm a completely different character.
Yeah. Did you wonder why guys would do that in particular? Or it almost seemed like, why did they just write off because of my sexual history or something?
I think I've seen it a lot from people who, you know, speak about certain subjects on Instagram or TikTok, and they can automatically kind of put someone down or question, you know, question who they are because of their past.
Yeah.
But as I shared earlier, there's always a reason for it. There's always like a deeper wound or a need, like a desire to be met. And the sex is just like the plaster on top. And then when you rip that off, actually, there's so much more going on.
I hear that. That. I think I completely get what you're saying. I think for a lot of guys, I don't speak for every single man, but I do speak to guys. And I think for a lot of guys, it's risk management.
Okay.
Because this goes for guys and girls, right? But the more people we've been with sexually, the more likely statistically we are to cheat and for infidelity to happen. Now, that doesn't mean if you've had a crazy sexual past that you're definitely going to.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, it's a whole thing of like, oh, if somebody who's a criminal, they are more likely to commit a crime than somebody who hasn't. That doesn't mean that they will, and that doesn't mean that the person who hasn't will never commit a crime.
Sure.
But for guys, it's like a risk management thing.
Okay.
And they think, okay, and the reason they're like, oh, if she's had a crazy past, I might stay away from her, because sexual fidelity to men is so important. Like, guys' standards aren't that much, as in they don't have a crazy list, but that means the things that are on there are very significant to him, and that's one of those things, like physical loyalty or sexual loyalty. So anything that kind of suggests there's a higher risk there can turn some guys off. That's where that comes from. Okay. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Because I think the equivalent for a woman is like, if you meet a guy and you're dating, get to know him, and then you find out that he's been with men before.
Right, okay.
You're like, oh, what does that say about the security of the relationship moving forward? Because it's not just women now. What if he starts liking guys again, or he meets a guy? Now I have to worry about guys as well as girls.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a fair comment. Yeah.
So it's like, and that doesn't mean that necessarily a guy is definitely going to cheat on you with another guy. But men and women, we both care about security, but we go about getting that security in different ways.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think it all goes down to trust, doesn't it? Again, and like how, I suppose, like how far are you willing to go? You know, if you really like someone and then, as you say, they kind of drop this truth bomb on you or say, oh, hey, by the way, this used to occur.
Yes.
This used to go down.
Yeah.
It could definitely cause a rift or, you know, make them question, is this worth continuing with?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely see both sides, but I think it all goes back to being open and honest, like open, honest communication, you know, because there will be girls out there, and there are girls out there, I was one of them, who was, you know, a prolific dater, like sleeping around, X, Y, and Z, who were actually desperate to be in a committed, loving relationship. But of course, the way they've gone about it is actually preventing that from happening. It's kind of like self-sabotage, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm looking for this,
so.
But my actions are this, which is not going to get me this.
Why do you think that for a lot of women that being out there, very promiscuous and stuff like that, why do you think that actually hurts their chances of getting a relationship as opposed to helping it? Because they think, oh, if I'm meeting loads of people, then I'm going to eventually meet someone who is going to be great for me and he thinks I'm great. But kind of like we said, it tends to hinder more than help.
Yeah.
So why do you think it hinders?
I think so. This is something I've learned more about, like in the last few years, like energy and attraction. So, for example, if you're going into a day and you might be thinking, oh, I'm doing everything right. I look really nice. I'm being polite. I'm willing to, listen to this man's views. Okay, that's all fine. But if you're going in there, whether you're aware of it or not, and projecting this energy of like, I'm ready, I'm available, I want a bit of fun, I'm not looking for anything serious, he's going to then pick up on that energy. So sometimes we're not even aware we're doing it. But it's so true. Like, I remember when I used to go out, I would look a certain way, I'd dress a certain way, all really to enhance the experience of, I want him to find me attractive. That's number one priority. Not I want him to respect me. I want him to want to get to know me. It was that I need to look this way. I want to be appealing.
Yes.
So when you have that intent, you're kind of putting that out there in the universe.
Yeah.
Whereas if a woman is more, say, reserved in the sense of, dress,
how she presents
herself, whether it's, having clear boundaries, whether it's not sharing too much on a first date.
So true.
Things like that, the energy is going to be reciprocated.
Yeah.
Or if she does go on a date and the guy's just looking for a bit of fun, he's going to naturally know, nah, this woman has respect for herself. There's no way she's coming back home with me tonight.
100%. And it's funny because it's actually a really good way to filter the guys who just are looking for fun.
Yeah.
Because I think, and tell me if you ever experienced this when you kind of evolved into a different mindset for yourself. But I've had women that I've worked with where they were like, oh, I went on a date with a guy and we went on 2 dates and stuff and he was talking to me all the time and things were going really, really great. And then after the second date, I just didn't hear from him again. But it seemed like everything was going really good. And I'm like, okay, well, I asked certain more questions and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, the first thing I always ask is like, have you slept with him? How physical have you been with him? Do you know what I mean? And if they're like, oh, like we've not slept together, like we kissed on the second date, but that was it. And I was like, okay. And it's very likely that when that scenario occurs, it's because a guy's looking for some fun.
Yeah.
And then you present yourself to be like, no, I'm a woman who's worth taking seriously. And he goes, okay, well, I'm not going to waste her time because she's not looking for that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's actually a really good way to filter guys who are just looking for fun, because the girl who maybe look for something serious, and if she is just kind of sleep with him straight away and everything, he could string that along because he's kind of getting what he wants until she's like, hey, what's going on? And it's like 6 months down the line, he's like, oh yeah, this was never serious for me. And she's like, what?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you think, this is probably controversial, so do you think how we dress does have an impact into how people see us and how we get treated in dating?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as humans, we evaluate and we make snapshot judgments. That's how we make sense of like our environment.
Yeah.
We're all guilty of it. If someone says, no, I don't, we do. We all do it.
Yeah.
It's whether we're aware of it or not, You might, in any instance, not just in the dating field, you might make a snapshot judgment on someone. In your head, you're saying, oh, this and that. But if you're able to kind of pause and go, oh shit, I've just made a horrible judgment about that person, I don't know them at all. It's different if you have that self-reflection and awareness. But of course, going back to kind of dating, if I was to wear a really short skimpy skirt, have like legs and boobs on show, have this confidence or aura about me, that's going to translate, particularly in a man's eyes, as, oh, right, she's game. Like she's up for it.
Yeah.
And although some women will dispute that and say, oh, you should be able to wear what you want. Yeah, you should. Absolutely. You should be able to wear what you want.
Yeah.
But it does have an impact.
Yeah.
The same as if you're going for a job interview. What does everyone do? They try to get a new suit, a new skirt. They want to look presentable. They want to look the part, don't they?
Yeah.
To give off
true.
this image of, pick me, like I'm successful. I'm good at this role.
Yeah, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, the energy you put out is the energy that will come back to you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And if you're finding that the energy that's coming back to you isn't the one that you want, then even just by elimination, you should definitely at least try putting something different out to see if you get a different result. Even if you disagree, if you say like, because a lot of women would say, well, how I dress shouldn't matter to how a guy would initially approach me or treat me. I'm like, it shouldn't, but it does.
Yeah, it
At the end of the day,
but it does.
It
exactly.
does. Do you know what I mean? Because we as human beings, because the way we've evolved, and this isn't just about dating, but also with danger and everything like that, we are constantly subconsciously looking for cues to assess the world that we live in.
Yeah.
Everything. Like, part of the reason why a lot of people hate spiders is because their 8 legs thing is so intimidating. So just seeing that makes us go, danger. But we are literally almost 1,000 times bigger than any spider ever.
Yeah.
So like the chance of, if we were like in a ring between me and a spider, the chances are I'm gonna kill it, but still seeing it can make us go, ooh. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
because with how we've
absolutely.
evolved. So we're constantly looking for cues to assess the world and the environments and the creatures and people that we're in. So yeah, if same with a girl. If you see a guy and stuff, and I know girls look at a guy's shoes a lot of the time.
Yeah.
If you see a guy who's dressed and you look at his shoes and they're whack, got holes in them, you're gonna make whether you realize it or not, you make a subconscious assessment about him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think as human beings, if we know that is the case, like, we're intelligent people, right? Mm-hmm. If we know that's the case, then we can make an effort to try and get a different result for what we want.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And it does work. Like you say, changing your stance, whether it's your like outer shell, your physical appearance, or even your mindset, going into dating with a completely different mindset.
Yes.
It's weird. It's like you repel any kind of bad news.
Yeah.
When I started to realize that and I was going out, I would never get any random guys, approaching me. I wouldn't get people slapping me on the ass as I was walking through a club because they know, no, she's not giving off that energy. Like she won't tolerate that.
Yeah.
You kind of carry yourself with like a certain confidence, and yeah, it does repel anyone that, maybe used to be able to kind of penetrate your field.
Yes.
It's like, psh, 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 back off.
Yeah, 100%. What, because you're in a relationship now.
Yeah.
And how long have you guys been together for?
It will be 3 years this September. Yeah.
Okay, 3 years.
Yeah.
So obviously before, when you were kind of out there living this crazy, kind of sexual lifestyle and stuff, you wanted a relationship and companion, but you weren't getting it.
Uh-huh.
So what were like if you're going to say 3 guys that you started to follow that started to attract that kind of man to you, what would you say that they were? What did you start doing differently?
What did I start doing differently?
Yeah.
So working with my therapist was the starting point for me, because I would be able to kind of relate to her what was going on in my dating life. She was very firm, very fair. Okay. So sometimes we'd have conversations that, would make me feel triggered inside. And I think, oh God, I can't believe she said that. But it was accurate. So I'd be saying to her, I really just want to settle down and meet the right person. And she'd kind of counteract that and say, really? Really? So why did you sleep with that guy last week then? Why are you doing that? And I'd be like, oh, because, I'm lonely and I'm sad. And she'd be like, yeah, but if you keep doing that, you're going to stay in that cycle forever. When does it stop?
Yes.
So the harsh truths were what I needed to hear. And she did some really lovely activities with me. They sound so basic now, but I needed them at the time. And it was like spotting red flags. So she'd say, okay, tell me about this chap, Hayley. What's he doing? And I'd say, this and that. Red flag, she'd say, red flag. And I'd say, oh no, like, he works hard and he drives or whatever. She'd say, okay, irrelevant. What is he?
Completely irrelevant.
And she'd say, your standards are so low, Hayley, that you think if someone drives, that's a thumbs up. And then I'd think, shit, yeah, like I'm making allowances for all these guys. Like, oh, well, he called me when he said he would, so that's good. So she would reframe it and be like, right, you need to start realizing what is okay and what isn't okay, like within a relationship or, when you're dating someone. So I went out there and put it into practice. I went back on my dating apps. And, again, listening to my gut, my intuition. Does this sound right? Is what he's saying marrying up? No, sounds shifty. Okay, let's leave that there then. And just giving me like the opportunity to kind of be more assertive and to say, well, actually, no, like I don't want to do this, or, I prefer to go here. So that was really helpful to be able to have like cues from my therapist, to put it into practice as well. I was very nervous, like kind of going back into the dating arena, if you like, because previously it would all be the same kind of story, you know, meet him, sleep with him, oh, heartbreak, he's gone, he doesn't like me anymore. Let's find someone else to fill that void. So yeah, it was like process of elimination, like observing as well. Observing, okay, so this is him on the first date. How is he appearing on the second date? Well, he's completely different. He's drunk. He's been abusive, you know?
Right. Is that quite often? Like you get really different, like severely different sides of guys, like from the first, second, third date?
So I noticed it when I was more conscious and aware dating. I noticed it a hell of a lot.
Right.
Whereas previously I probably would have just ignored it.
Right.
I remember going on a date with one guy. So the first date was wonderful. He was really charming, very polite. I felt really drawn to him. I thought, oh, he seems like a really genuine, nice guy. We said our goodbyes and, you know, kind of said, yeah, we'd both like to see each other again. The second date come and it was like a completely different person.
What was he like?
Paralytic drunk. We went to London and he said, you know, we'll go for a nice meal, and he lived in London. I'll take you around London. Okay, lovely. So we started off with the meal. I'm sober at this stage, so I've been sober. It'll be 4 years this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm like, oh no, thanks. You know, I'm not drinking. He was, you know, bottle after bottle of wine. I didn't comment. I thought, we won't pass judgment. Everyone's different, but I was noticing, you know, he was getting drunker and drunker.
Yes.
We went to a second bar, and whilst we were at the bar ordering drinks, he whispered something along the lines of, I really want to do anal with you tonight. I can't wait to fuck you. So, and I thought, oh my goodness, hold on a minute. Like we're like 40 minutes into our second date.
Yeah.
So again, you know, past me would be like, cool. Yeah. Sounds fun.
Yeah.
New me, I'm like, hold on a minute. This is inappropriate, like completely.
Wow. That's mad.
Yeah, so I obviously retaliated and was like, no, that's not appropriate. Like, I can't believe you've just said that.
Good for you.
To which he was, oh, you know, no, I'm only joking, but obviously I'm really attracted to you, blah, blah, blah.
Was this, sorry to cut you off, was this when you were more how you are now? Or
yes, yeah.
Were you in the transition period?
In the transition period, yeah.
So do you think there were some things that maybe you were still... not advocating, advertising.
Yeah.
For like more of a, I'm a fun sexual kind of girl.
Possibly.
When you were dating this guy. But mindset wise, you'd already started to shift.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So possibly he did pick up on some cues, or maybe the way I was dressed. I don't know. But I remember wearing like trousers and a bodysuit and heels. So it wasn't, you know, it wasn't a lot
wasn't crazy.
to see. Yeah, no, it was quite demure.
The reason I asked that is because it could have been, it sounded like the second date, he had very much decided that he wanted to sleep with you that night.
Yes, yeah.
Very much so. That's why he was like, because he knew you lived in Hertfordshire, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why he was like, come, we'll have dinner and then I'll show you around London.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you have dinner, you have a few drinks, you'll walk around, and we get so late. He'd be like, she's not going to go.
Trains have stopped.
She's not going to go back to Hertfordshire. It's 2:30 in the morning. Come stay at mine.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So he would have very much decided from this, like before even seeing you on the second day, that he wanted to have sex with you. Now, I'm asking why. And this is what I was saying, where were you in your transition? Because if you had started having the mindset of a healthier mindset, but let's say you were still advertising certain things that you're a sexual party girl in the first date, he probably had zero expectations. So he's like, I'm just going to be a nice gentleman. And he was, but maybe in the first date, he saw how you were, maybe your energy or something. He was like, oh, nah, she's game. So the next time I see her, we're going to do this.
That's interesting.
And then he got surprised.
Surprise, yeah. Surprise.
Burst his bubble. Psych.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it was a blessing that I was sober at that point as well, because, you know, if I'd have been drinking, who knows where things would have gone.
And I reckon the reason he kept on drinking was because...
And he did keep saying, have a drink. And I was like, no.
Yeah, to peer pressure you.
Yes. Yeah.
I think, because how many bottles would you say he had?
Oh, God. He had probably 2 bottles of wine with the meal.
Right.
And then when we went to the bar... He made that comment, which automatically I was thinking, I think I'm going to duck out of this. And he just progressively got more and more drunk, to the point that someone, bar staff that actually worked there, came over and was like, he needs to chill out. Can he sit down? And I was, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know what to do in this scenario. Like, we're on a second date. I don't really know him.
Yeah.
So I'm having to say to him, like, calm down, sit down. Like, you're knocking into people.
The irony is he probably drunk more because you weren't drinking.
Yeah, and I think
because
maybe...
he's trying to get you. He was like, come join me.
Yes,
like, if
sure.
I drink more, eventually she'll have one glass. When she has one, she'll have three. And when she has three, we're doing anal that night.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
I think maybe there was an element of embarrassment as well, where I kind of rejected him when, you know, he was whispering sweet things in my ear. And I was like, no, that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a pull to... oh shit, I feel really awkward now. Like, what do I do here?
Yeah. If he's drunk, he probably didn't read
too much into it. Yeah, that's a good point.
No, well, I was thinking he probably didn't read your, he probably wasn't reading your energy in terms of where you were at and the frequency you were on. He was just like, how do I get her back to mine? And guys do this. Like, guys think, they're like, when they go on a date and depending on if it's the second date and it's like, if it's like, oh, we're having dinner near my house, for half that date, he's thinking, is she going to come back to mine? How do I convince her to come back to mine? For like half the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if he was, he definitely was doing that with you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he didn't know what to do because it wasn't going that way. So he just thought, fuck it, I'll just say it. Hey, let's have sex tonight. Do you know what I mean?
Needless to say, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I saved him.
I'm glad it didn't. If you'd said that it had, I'd have been like, get out now.
I think I saved him from some oncoming traffic at one point.
Shit.
And then I was like, it's time to go, isn't it? But the trains had stopped. So I found myself stuck in London. So I said, you know, would you you need to go halves with me to like pay for a taxi home because of your state and me having to kind of nurse you to safety. I've like missed the trains. And it was then that he become quite nasty and was like, no, like you can stay at mine. I said, no, I'm not staying at yours. Definitely not. And yeah, from then that was, you know, okay, well, I'm going home. So I went home. And then I think he texted me or messaged me on like whatever dating app we'd met, like a week or so later, like, oh, hey, like, do you want to come for a picnic? And I thought, what? So he either had like no recollection of what happened or he just assumed, oh, you know, I'll try her and see if she will come for the picnic. But yeah, by that
I'm going to challenge you a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's completely fair to ask for him to say, for you to go, so when you were saying at the end of the day and there weren't any trains back, I think it's completely fair for you to ask like, hey, do you mind contributing because I kind of stayed to try and help look after you.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're entitled to that.
No,
I don't think it was
not.
like, I don't think it was like, oh, well, because I stayed to nurse you, you owe me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because what you did was very nice, obviously, and it was the kind thing to do. But you could have chosen to leave to get your last train if you wanted to.
Yeah, of course.
You know, whenever that was. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Did he end up sharing, like, contributing to you?
No, he didn't.
Damn.
Yeah. No, he didn't. But...
Interesting. Let me ask you something else.
Okay.
Let me get my phone out real quick. Don't know what's happened. What did your kind of party promiscuous phase, what did that teach you about men?
Oh, good question. I think it probably taught me that actually there are a lot of men out there who also share the similar internal kind of conflicts as women. You know, there are a lot of men out there who were giving off this image of, you know, oh, I like to sleep about, I'm a player, I'm this and that, kind of like a badge of honor. But deep down, they were in just as much pain, or they were just as confused.
Because I think a lot of guys would do that if they could. Most guys just can't do that.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there are a lot that love the game and obviously enjoy sex, and that's kind of their whole personality type, if you like, being like a player and loving the attention they get from women.
Yes.
But there were definitely a few that were kind of there because of the same thing, like whether it was having a difficult childhood, maybe,
or a difficult child,
or a difficult child
to cope,
like the breakdown of a marriage, the breakdown of a relationship that they've never got over, so they're just using sex as like a way to kind of numb the pain.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? I think guys can definitely use sex with women to cope with other things.
Yeah.
And I think we see it less because I think guys are predisposed to want to have as much fun with different women as they can, at least initially. But yeah, they definitely can. They definitely can use it, and even for validation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Like to validate if they feel that they're losing in one part of their lives. They're like, okay, I'm losing this part, but at least I can get women.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
That. Yeah.
And it's very difficult to do. What's one thing you would ask all guys if you could? Something you could ask all men?
I would say, because this one comes up a lot in conversation and debate. So
Yeah.
if a woman sleeps around,
Yes.
she's a slag, she's worthless, she's a whore. But if a guy sleeps around, the general camaraderie is, oh, he's a legend, like good for him, that's great.
Yeah.
I wonder if men who have slept around, if they ever feel like an element of regret, shame, guilt, or whether it is like an ego boost and they're like totally okay with what they're doing.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I've never, and it's just my anecdotal experience, I've never met a guy that has regretted being sexually intimate with women. Mm-hmm. The only time I've seen where he's regretted is like if she got pregnant or if you got an STD
there's
or
a consequence.
something. Right, if there's a consequence for the action. But if the action itself, no. And I think the reason is because, and this goes back to why is it almost like a badge of honor for guys? Mm-hmm. And it's because, well, who has the power to sex, men or women? Like who says yes to sex, men or women?
Well, women, yeah.
Right. So if a guy has showed that he has gotten a lot of women to say yes to him,
yep,
that's very, to guys in the guys hierarchy, that's very commendable. It's like, it's different if, it's kind of like if women are the employers and men are the employees or the candidates to become employees.
Yeah.
The candidate who's had offers from loads of different companies is seen as the Don.
Okay.
But the company who's just offering contracts out to everyone doesn't seem like a high value company because it's like, well, you're offering a job to everyone. But the guys who, if you weren't offering a job to everyone, then the job seems more valuable. But the guys are the candidates who are interviewing for these jobs. So, and that's kind of how it is with sex. It's a guy's interested in you and he's like, hey, do you feel I'm good enough to be intimate with me, to share your body with me? Because as a woman, we're talking about the feminine, right? As the woman, the man enters you.
Yeah.
Right? That's very vulnerable for you. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, am I good enough for you to share your body with me? And if you go yes, that validates him, not you.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
For the women's side, if she's just giving it out, it's just seen as less valuable. Because women are the gatekeepers for physical intimacy, but men are the gatekeepers for emotional intimacy, for commitment, for relationships. So the woman's, I would say validation, but the value that a man gives to a woman isn't sex, it's his commitment.
Yes.
Which is why that's the number one thing that most women want. It's not the sex, because they can go out and have sex easily.
Yeah.
It's the commitment and the relationship and the companionship they want. And that's when she's won. Not when she gets sex. And I think that's why there's a difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Let me ask you another thing. I had a really great question I want to ask you as well. Oh yeah. Hope you don't mind sharing this. Are you officially celibate? You told me that you kind of go through a celibacy at one point.
Yeah, so I went through a celibacy. So I was in a period of celibacy when I met my partner, my current partner.
Yeah.
And
he was like, not today. No,
it was amazing. We honoured it together. And
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was a big conversation when we first got together. I was open about my history and vice versa. And we said, we
had you been with guys?
Pardon?
Had he been with guys?
No. But
She's
I know
like,
a few.
nope.
I know a few guys that have. So when you said that earlier, I was like, oh yeah, that brings back memories.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and we just made, the commitment to get to know each other. So it was organic, it was wholesome, it was spending time with one another. It was, putting the effort in to think of date days, date nights.
Yeah, of course.
And it was all about our connection as opposed to, that intimate side of things that was put on, hiatus while we got to know each other.
So you said it telling him that you're now celibate. That didn't put him off at all?
Not at all.
Respect.
And when we discussed it, he was like, do
That's
you know what?
man.
That was lovely to hear. And he said, that was like a point where he was like, oh yeah, okay, this is great. Like, she's honoring herself and I'm happy to get to know her.
Yeah. And then at what point did you kind of decide to break that seal with him?
I don't know. It was a couple of months in. Yeah. So a couple of months in, but the relationship as a whole hasn't been built, around sex. It's been built around getting to know one another and respect and, So
I mean, that's why you're here 3 years strong.
Yes, exactly. So very refreshing, very new to me. So, there have been moments where we have, butted heads or tried to navigate, old habits die hard, don't they? So I might bring some past insecurities into the field and be like, oh, this doesn't feel right. And then I have to remind myself, no, this is what a loving, kind relationship is. It's not what that was.
Can you give us an example of something that
Yeah, for sure. So previously when, I was a serial dater and sleeping around, I was very drawn to sort of dominating, I wouldn't say violent, but, sex that was intense, shall we say, or perhaps some people would call perverse. So I had to rewire my brain to, acknowledge that stuff wasn't normal. In my mind, anything that differated from that I'd call vanilla, boring, it's not thrilling enough. So to be able to kind of strip that all back and understand what a loving normal sex life is, it was hard for me. I'd never done it before, so I kind of felt like,
how did you, because we've mentioned rewiring quite a couple of times now, were there things that you practiced? Did you know how, because our thoughts create our feelings, right? A lot of the time. So was it certain thoughts you would keep coming back to and remind yourself on? How did you start rewiring yourself to start appreciating something that was healthy for you, even though it wasn't like crazy thrilling?
Yeah, so one thing I knocked on the head was watching porn. That had to go. Did
you watch porn a lot or?
Yes, I used to watch porn pretty much every day.
What, every day?
Yeah, pretty much.
Sounds like I know guys who are extreme, and I'd say that's extreme for a guy, but yeah. Wow,
most nights.
Okay.
If I was seeing someone, if I was in a relationship, whether they knew about it, whether it's something we viewed together or whether it was just a solo thing, I'd be doing that.
Would you have said it was an addiction?
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It got to the point where, I couldn't physically orgasm unless I was watching something that was making me feel.
It's like your version of erectile dysfunction.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, yeah, that's mad.
And over time, it just got progressively worse. So then it was like, well, I can't orgasm through touch. I have to use toys. And it's a very slippery slope. So porn had to go. That was something that I spoke to my therapist about. Yeah. So that went in 2020. That was hard because it was like, oh, okay, I've got to use my imagination now. Yes. Toys went because
I was going to ask about toys because I think it's quite normal for most, especially nowadays, young women to have a toy of some kind.
Yes, yeah.
And I've heard girls be like, yeah, the toy is, they get more sexually pleased from the toy than the average guy.
Yeah.
The average guy may give them more of that emotional intimacy. You can't ever have that with a toy. No. I mean, maybe you can. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. But what do you think about it? Do you think that really does affect if a woman has a toy in terms of
100%.
Right.
Like I used to use the toy as convenience. So for example, if I was being intimate with someone,
yes,
I didn't like them touching me because I thought it's uncomfortable. I'm not going to orgasm. It's going to take too long. Like, you're not doing it right. Let me just get my toy. So it was more convenient. And then, of course, guys would then, lose the interest in stimulating me because they'd be like, well, yeah, use a toy then. It's quicker. It's easier.
Yeah, of course.
And for me, like going into a more deeper level, the toy was a complete disconnect in me and my body. So I didn't know really, I didn't know my body. I didn't know what worked for me. I didn't know what I liked, how I liked to be like held or touched, because the toy was doing it all, quick, 2 minutes, done.
Yeah. Could you get there yourself without a toy?
No, never.
Wow. So you could never make yourself orgasm without a toy?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's a
my
lot,
current partner now is the only man that has ever made me orgasm naturally.
Yes, man. Claps for you. Claps for you.
But yeah, because the toy was always a block. I was more of a giver. I'd, focus on the man as opposed to him doing stuff to me. I'd shy away from that, or I'd be like, no, leave it. I'm not going to. It's going to take too long.
Wow. Yeah, and even having that mindset, like kind of being like the mindset of, to him, just like, oh, you're not going to be able to do it. So just do it. Like, just that mindset blocks you from him actually allowing to give that to you and to actually give you an orgasm. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because you've already decided that he can't do it.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're already putting negativity and, barriers.
Yes.
And then you might get the odd guy that sees it as a challenge and would be like, yes, I'm going to be. And
so true.
Yeah. And then that would become uncomfortable because you'd just be like, okay, stop, like get off me now. Like it's not happening.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, porn had to go. Toys had to go. What else? Well, old mindset had to go. Like I had to understand that the things that I was doing, engaging in, watching were, period abusive. But in my head, I'd kind of normalized it and thought, oh no, like everyone likes this kind of stuff. It's, it's thrilling, it's exciting.
Yeah. Wow. It's so interesting. It's so interesting hearing a woman kind of openly kind of say, and thank you so much for sharing, because I think that applies, that will resonate with so many people, just about how knowing herself sexually, because then that helps create that physical connection with the man that she loves.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
And like, you saying that your boyfriend, your partner, he's the only man who's ever made you orgasm. And when you orgasm with someone, like that emotional bond and intimacy that you have, it's just kind of, especially for a woman. I mean, you tell me, you're a woman, so I don't know why I'm taking it. But did you feel that? Did you feel that when he got that just made you kind of...
It's a whole different dynamic. It's completely different. Like your serotonin, like your oxytocin, it just... Yeah, and like afterwards, you just want to embrace each other. It's not like I'll quickly get dressed. Yeah, see you later. I'll call you next week.
Yeah,
it's
100%.
like you just melt into each other's arms, and it just feels so wholesome and safe as well. Like when we talk about the kind of thrilling side of sex or like dominating sex, it's risky and it's violent and it's aggressive and there's no kind of element of safety there.
Sure.
Whereas when, you are being intimate with someone that you love, someone that respects you, someone that's going to listen if you say, no, stop, or that doesn't feel good. It creates a whole different atmosphere. Definitely.
Did you feel with guys who were giving you that dominant thing that you did want, at least at the time sexually, did you feel that you wouldn't have been able to say no and change your mind if you weren't enjoying it with them?
No. There'd be a handful that I would, if I knew them, from previous relationships, or if I'd been seeing them, I would feel comfortable to kind of say, oh, no, actually that's hurting, or that doesn't feel good.
Yes.
But if I didn't have that, familiarity with them, no, I would just push myself and think, well, I'm not going to like ruin the vibe. I'll keep going, or, I'll make out that I'm fine, even if I'm not.
Yeah. Interesting. What's something you'd like to bring to conversation? Is there something you'd like to talk about? We haven't touched on.
I think as well, like just going back to the porn, because people do dismiss porn as, oh, it's not so bad. Like it's fine. Everyone watches it, but it literally changes your brain chemistry. I remember the first people who are familiar with porn, I watched a lady called Sasha Grey. That was the first content I viewed.
I've heard of her before.
So she does quite a lot of...
I mean, I've never heard of her ever.
Most people have heard of her. Yeah. So I remember watching her for the first time and like fangirling, being like, wow, like, oh my God, I want to do I want to do that in the bedroom. Like, I want to be like her.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it was quite brutal, some of her content.
Yeah.
And there was, you know, many guys, not just one-on-one sex. It was, you know, gangbangs or like groups or whatever. So that kind of implanted that thought in my head of, oh yeah, like this is great. Let's try and reenact that.
Yeah.
So I would watch certain content and think, well, I want to do that. I want to try that. I want to see how that feels.
Yes.
And it just escalates because there'll come a point where I saw a funny, well, I shouldn't laugh, but I did. I saw a meme the other day and it was like page 230 on Pornhub where you're literally going through these videos trying to find like the perfect video.
Jesus.
And I remember doing that. I remember thinking, no, too vanilla, no, too boring. Oh, like needs to be more graphic, needs to be more intense. And over time, it's mad that you started here and now you're here. And it's recognizing that shift in like your interest, and like your hunger to try things that aren't necessarily good.
I mean, I completely hear that. So obviously, kind of when you were kind of out there, obviously we can both agree, and I completely understand. You kind of like from the place from which you were operating from really wasn't healthy for you and was probably detrimental for you, though. Surely it wasn't all bad. You would have had some fun times.
Of course, It wasn't all bad. Don't get me wrong. Like I always say, I never have any regrets. I have lessons.
Yes.
So when I reflect back, you know, there were some times that I had fun.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I felt confident. I felt as though, oh well, you know, at least I've tried it because I wanted to try it. I've tried it now.
That's a good
point. Did I like it? Maybe not, but I've done it now. But there were moments of fun or joy, if you like. Not joy, that's the wrong word. Moments of fun and thrill.
And lust, yeah.
But then the crashes. So, you know, I'd have like a momentary, oh yeah, this was fun, this was sexy, whatever. And then it would be the crashes, like the bad depression, like the guilt, the regret, the shame.
Where do you think the shame comes from? Because guys don't really feel that shame.
Yeah, I mean, again, just like a societal kind of standing point. Like people think that women who, you know, engage in these things are nothing, like you're worthless. And it's mad because during the act, you're like put on a pedestal, like they love you, they can't get enough of you. Oh my God, pick me, like do this to me.
Yeah.
And then when it's all over, it's just like, yeah, fuck off, like you're nothing.
This is how, one thing I always say, this is how you know when a guy truly feels about you. Because have you ever heard of post-nut clarity?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. It's not how he treats you before sex, it's how he treats you straight after sex.
Yes.
That's how you know how he really feels about you. And if he distances himself from you, like straight after sex, for him, it's just that he's not actually that into you.
No,
he's just into what you can do for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
Like what you can provide and how, I guess, experienced you are like in the bedroom.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because I remember when you were saying about a badge of honor for a guy, I remember like adapting that and using it as like, oh, you know, I'm really good at giving head, or I'm really good. And that was like my badge of honor. It was like it sounds awful because of course there's so many wonderful gifts and talents that we all have. And, you know, whether you're a really caring person, you might be great with children, whatever. I didn't have any of that. I just used to think, oh, well, I'm really good in bed, apparently. Guys say I'm really good in bed and I'm good at this.
Yeah. Thing is, that could all be true, but it's just wearing it as a badge of honor. It is a badge of honor depending on what avenue you want to take with this guy.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you just want it to be fun, that is a badge of honor. Like, that's really good news to his ears. Do you know what I mean? He's like, oh yeah, she's very experienced. I know I'm going to have an amazing time. Because the girl who's more quote unquote girlfriend, wifey material, if he's just looking for fun, he makes the assessment that I'm probably going to have less sexual, lustful fun with her, even though she's probably the one that I'd actually, you know, give my commitment to and actually ask to marry me.
Like settle down with.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And I think receiving that feedback from guys, like if they were, I don't know, anything like, oh, I love your boobs, or you're really good at this or whatever, I'd get a sense of pride from that. And I'd think, oh, well, you know, that's good. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
But again, reflecting back, never would anyone say, oh, do you know what, you're really funny, or like, you've got a great personality, or you're really kind, Hayley. Like, would never hear any of that.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So then when I was speaking about the transition, like being in the loving relationship I'm in now with my amazing partner, you know, to be complimented on things like my work, or how I decorate the home, or not how I make dinner, because I'm a terrible cook, he's the cook, but you know, things like that, thoughtfulness, whatever.
Yes.
It was so new to me, and I was kind of like, oh, this is lovely, but this is strange. I've never heard this before. He said to me recently, Joe, you're so funny, babe. And I was like, you're the first person that's ever said that. I was like, no one's ever said I'm funny before. He's like, yeah, you crack me up. Like, you've got such a wit about you.
That's so good.
But yeah, of course, all of those parts of me were never being shown way back then. It was just all about what I could do in the bedroom.
Yeah, of course. So here's the thing, like, we've talked about your man.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're in such a loving relationship where he really does appreciate you, who you are, and the value that you bring for him in his life.
Yeah.
What boundaries did you have when you started dating, especially initially with him, that you wouldn't have had when you were 22, 23, 24? That helped you kind of attract and find that kind of guy who's for you?
I think, yeah, we were very open from the get-go of, you know, what we wanted, what we expected from each other. So whether it was, you know, clear communication, not, you know, like some people will go on a date, then there's all the mind games of like, oh, don't text her, don't text him. So then you don't hear from each other. Never any of that. It was always like clear, consistent communication.
Great.
Open, honesty, you know, if you couldn't make like a date, say you were busy, that's absolutely fine. There's no dramas. It's not like, you know,
you don't like me enough or something.
Yeah. No like checking up on each other. Oh, he texted me, he hasn't replied. None of that. It was just very mature. Also, I think being open to each other's beliefs, because at the time I was going through a huge shift. Like, I know this has happened to a lot of people. 2020 was a year that just flipped the world upside down, and lots of people had this like rebirth of like, what is life? Who am I? Like, where am I going?
Yeah, 100%. Everyone had a quarter midlife crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I was like evolving and changing as we were kind of progressing in the relationship, if you like.
Yeah.
So it was like him offering that safe space for me to like find out who I am, to like explore. I was like protesting. I never used to go to a protest. I wouldn't have even thought of going to a protest. I wouldn't have given a shit back then. But like suddenly I'm developing like these new beliefs and like these kind of core values. So he was kind of holding my hand through that and being like, okay, like maybe we disagree on this, you know, worldly situation, but that's fine. Like, we'll go through it together.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So
that's great.
Yeah, it was really kind of person-led, and just offering each other like time, space, and compassion as well. Yeah,
of course. There's one more thing I want to ask you.
Yeah.
How do you handle temptation, or do you get tempted? Because you built so much habits of a different kind of lifestyle and developed a hunger for that lifestyle then, right? And like we said, there would be some things that you really did enjoy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure there were, you know, guys who you would have thought, wow, he's like super attractive or really successful or whatever. So a lot of the, like you said, the surface level things that actually would have attracted you to these kind of individuals in that lifestyle. How do you handle the temptation of not maybe getting back into that lifestyle, but maybe, you know, touching on that hunger that you don't indulge in anymore? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, for example, like, are there guys, let's say you've been with super, super attractive guys and that's what you were going for before. And it's kind of like, how do you handle if you, for example, if a super attractive guy took an interest in you and like, oh, that old part of you is like, oh yeah, maybe I could indulge in that again. How do you handle that?
I would just kind of immediately shut it down if it were to happen. It hasn't happened. Because like I say, I think people can see I'm different now and I kind of repel that energy. But also just kind of, it sounds really basic, but I use it a lot with clients. Like, just a pros and cons list is so helpful with making any decisions in life. So for example, with any like addiction, so mine was sex and porn, for some it's alcohol, it's drink, whatever.
Yes.
Having a pros and cons. Okay, so what did this like need or addiction provide? What were the pros? What were the cons? And to be able to kind of look at that on paper, it makes it so much more easier to go, well, I'd be a fucking idiot to go back there. Like this caused this misery, this chaos, this trauma, this drama.
Yes.
This is wholesome, healthy, you know, I'm my best self.
Yeah.
So that's always like a nice reminder.
Yeah.
But with regards to kind of adapting sexually, that has been hard. I won't lie, it has been tricky.
Yeah, of course.
Because I've not wanted to kind of bring any of that darkness into my wonderful relationship as well.
Yes.
Because I perceive that now as so unhealthy and damaging that it's hard to, for example, if there was something I used to enjoy sexually, it's hard to then do that in a wholesome way, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I've just kind of like left that in the past and tried to find, you know, new things that me and my partner both enjoy, as opposed to like, oh, well, that's what used to get me like going, you know?
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing elements from your past into the play of a relationship, because I mean, before, like you said, kind of before you were just having sex with random guys or whatever.
Yeah.
You weren't like, well, you did stop having sex for a bit, but now you're having intimacy with your partner, right? It's just because it comes from a different place, it feels different.
Yes, it does. Yeah, you've explained that perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, you know, especially if you're going to have a long-term relationship, I don't think there's anything wrong with introducing new play, especially if it's something you're experienced in. Yeah. You could be like, maybe we can try this. Do you know what I mean? And you kind of see, and if you both like it, you go, oh, this works for us, great. And if you don't, like, cool, I can discard that. And I know what you mean. It's kind of the hard line of, no, anything from my past, from that life, I'm kind of like, I'm not letting any of that seep into this.
Yes, yeah.
And I completely get that. But I think you should have more confidence in your strength that you've built, that you can allow elements from that to work for you now.
Yeah, definitely. It is something that I have kind of considered and sat on. And I did speak to a therapist about it, and I think maybe that's a good shout to kind of discuss it with her and kind of.
That's what I say, definitely. But I think you can afford yourself the opportunity if you wanted it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it is something that we've discussed as a couple, and it is something that, you know, I've confided in friends about and said, you know, where there's so much negativity like attached to this stuff, I'm very mindful of, you know, not wanting to kind of bring back old ghosts or like, you know, get into that mindset of the thrill rather than the connection. So but
you can have thrill times with your boyfriend too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something to think about.
100%. Hayley, you've been such a pleasure to have on.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to chat, and I hope that, it's opened up the floor for people to, you know, kind of remove the shame or to just explore like.
100%. No, 100%. No, we really appreciate you sharing your time with us and giving us your time. So thank you. If people want to find you and follow your message, where can they find you? Yeah,
they can find me. So I'm only on Instagram and it's at Coached with Hayley A. So I put some stuff on there, very deep, kind of honest and open stuff. So things that people can relate to. There's like no topics are, you know, off it. Any taboo stuff is welcome. We talk about all stuff. Yeah. So
awesome. We love that. We love that. Well, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate you. Audience appreciate you. Guys, go show Hayley some love. Give her a follow. Check out her stuff. She's got some really good messages on there, especially if you feel you're the kind of person going through a transition in your life, because you want to start bringing different things and new results into your life. So definitely check her out and show us some love from the Stay Slick with Kit team. But thank you for tuning in, guys, and I will see you in the next episode.